Hello there, we are continuing with Lesson 3, and this is Part 2. So we're back on Adobe Illustrator with a clean document opened up. We have our basic palettes and windows and toolbox, of course. So we left last time looking at the shapes that we can create, or the objects that we can create using this basic tool. Next we're going to go to the line tool, and again you're going to want to tear this off. Create your little subtool menu, and we can start with the regular line tool. Now lines can come filled or unfilled. Most of the time you will want to use unfilled lines. So I'm going to click on my white here, and I'm going to create a non-color out of that. So now it will give me a black stroke or a black edge to my lines that I create with no fill, and I'll show you the difference in just a moment as well. So for creating lines, it is simple as clicking and dragging however you wish it to be. And you just saw my Smart Guide pop up there. Smart Guide will allow you to align things at 45-degree angles unless you have some other setting set. We'll use Smart Guides later on in the semester. Okay, so those are just your basic lines. You can also simply click on your background, and you can specify the length or the angle of your line. You can fill it here if you wish, but there are other ways to fill it as well. Let's just say I want a 6-inch line. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways that you can set this up. Using curved lines is not much different. Okay, you click and you drag out the shape that you want. You can also adjust that curve by using your up and your down arrow keys. You can also make it an open or a closed arc by using C on your keyboard. Okay, and all this is while I'm holding down my mouse button. And you can also change it to be a concave or convex by using X. And these are all different settings on your arc. Okay, you can also click, and you can change all of these things here as well. Another one that, again, I haven't used, but some people have told me about it. It's kind of interesting. As you're clicking and dragging, and this is hard if you're using a trackpad like I am, but if you hold down the tilde key, you can get a repeated line, which kind of, whoops, see I let go of it too far. Click. My fingers are barely long enough to stretch this. There it is. So it kind of has an interesting look. You might find a use for it at something. Kind of interesting. You might have a better luck using some other tools to create this kind of look, but it certainly is a way of working if you wish. Moving on to the next tool is the spiral tool. I'm also going to clean this. There's a couple ways you can clean it. You can certainly use undo, or you can open up a new document. I'm going to use my select key, and I'm just going to delete. And I will show you how to do that little trick on the next lesson. I just want to keep this clean so you guys can see what I'm doing. So on the spirals, these are kind of nice little tools. And clicking and dragging, of course, works. And you can get them all different sizes. You can also click on the background, and you can switch the style, the number of segments, and the decay rate, and of course the size. And so you get different kind of looks to your spirals as you're working. And these spirals can be filled or unfilled. I have been using an unfilled line for everything, but this might be a good chance to show you the filled look. So I'm going to make sure that that is selected and click a fill. And on my stroke, I'm going to increase that stroke so you guys can see it more easily too. So that gives you an idea of what it looks like when you have a filled line. In this case, it's a spiral line. But there's different ways that you can choose to do these things, and this is just one of them. Alright, next is the Polar Grid tool. And Polar Grid tool, again, click and drag. Holding down the Shift key will make it perfect square. You can also click on the background, and you can set your number of dividers. You can choose to fill it. You can set your size, all these different types of things. And then you also have a Polar Grid tool. This is another one I haven't really had a chance to use yet, just haven't had need for it. But you can stretch that out, and as you're holding down your mouse button, you can use the up and down arrow keys and the left and right arrow keys to increase the number of segments you have. This will also work on the standard grid, by the way. Oops, I lifted the Shift key too fast. So as you're stretching out your regular grid, you can also use up and down and left and right to increase the number of cells. Lots of different ways to create very, very basic objects. And you'll notice that everything within Illustrator is an object, and you select objects using your selection tools here. We don't work in rasters or pixels when we're working in Adobe Illustrator. I talked about this in the first lesson. Everything in Adobe Illustrator is an object, and we have to treat them as an object, not as individual pixels that we can edit, such as we can in a program like Photoshop. I just want to show you one more thing in this lesson, and that is the pencil tool. And if you are a sketcher, illustrator, or artist of some sort, you might really like the pencil tool. Pencil tool allows you to do freehand lines. And how sensitive the mouse is to your movement can be set by doing a double click on pencil. The fidelity and the smoothness will adjust how closely it follows your movements. So you can kind of play with these a little bit. You can also extend a path. Sometimes with a trackpad such as I'm using, it's hard to do the length of a line that you may want. So you may have to do it in several pieces. But if you have keep selected and edit selected paths on, and then you can pick your pixel length, you can actually extend a line. So as long as this is selected, and as long as I am within 12 pixels, I can continue my line, as opposed to starting a new one. The trick is, of course, it does have to be selected, which we're going to talk about in the next lesson. There are a number of subtools underneath the paintbrush called Smooth and Path Eraser. I don't use these that often. There's other ways of doing these types of things which I find easier and quicker to do, but there are other subtools under here. You also have the paintbrush that works almost the same as the pencil tool. And you can change these settings as you need to. Not quite close enough, but we'll get to more details on this as well. So that is the end of Lesson 3, Part 2.